Hi, this is Marcus Pulis, and this is Aquarian Anarchy. I'm going to dive right in this week, but first I wanted to suggest that you like, share, comment after this news program. As I mentioned last week, I'm going to begin doing weekly news coverage with some commentary after it, eventually developing into a show that isn't just me, that has at least one, if not two or three other co-hosts, where we will discuss some of the issues. But for this week, I'm going to get right to the news itself. As most of you know, the last time that we got together for Aquarian Anarchy, Trump had just attacked or assassinated an Iranian general in Iraq, and actually the night of the filming, literally moments after, and no real news was known at the time, moments after taping last week's show, and I taped these on Tuesday nights, right after the taping, Iran launched missiles back at U.S. bases in Iraq, and so a lot of that last week's coverage was that, and this week isn't going to be that much different, although lots of things have changed, lots of stories have changed. So I guess the first thing that I should cover is Trump's speech, largely, which happened on Wednesday following the assassination, or sorry, following the retaliation from Iran. Trump's speech was weak. It didn't display, like, project power in any way, lied a lot. I'm not going to get really deep into that. Other people have done so. I suggest you look them up. But he also kind of looked drugged. I guess maybe, what's happened is they took him into a room when he came into the office initially, and, he was told what his marching orders were going to be, and he gets kind of upset about that, so he's got to take some drugs. I understand that. I would never do what he's doing. They'd have to kill me. But I understand people like him having to be drugged in order to, enslave the world. So, basically that's where I'm at with his speech. It was chock full of a bunch of neocon talking points and trying to look like he's the tough guy and all of those sorts of things. The link will be below to the C-SPAN coverage of Trump's speech. I was not impressed. I guess I should be thankful, because it wasn't talking about, well, we're going to kill everybody, which is typically what government does, and it's what they've been aiming at for a while. And my guess is that the reason they didn't is because the American people screamed very loudly, no, don't do that. Shortly after that, both Rand Paul and Mike Lee decided to, again, pretend to be libertarians. Found a story by Jennifer Rubin, and I'm going to go ahead and read part of that. What she said was, Senator Mike Lee unloaded on the administration Wednesday. Unloaded. Still going to pass all their stuff, but he unloaded Wednesday afternoon for disregarding Congress's role to declare war. So he's not mad because there was war. He's not mad because of all the bullcrap I'm about to talk about. No, Mike Lee's upset because Trump didn't follow the Constitution like anybody has in forever. When you ask people who was the first president to go against the Constitution, and I don't know, maybe Lincoln, I don't know who it is. George Washington. George Washington was the first one. You can look it up. He's the first one president. In other words, the first one. So the fact that they didn't pay attention to the Constitution and declare war or seek congressional approval and all of that is that's what they do, and I think one of the things we really need to get past in this country is the assumption that they're ever going to follow the Constitution. If there was a chance that they were going to, that ship sailed a long time ago. It's gone now, guys. Constitution might as well be burned away. Put it in a museum. That's great, but it's gone. That's not happening. And frankly, why would we want to move backwards? So anyway, to continue, he told reporters after a briefing on the strike killing Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani and its aftermath, quote, "The briefing lasted only 75 minutes, whereupon our briefers left. This, however, is not the biggest problem I have with the briefing, which I would add was probably the worst briefing I've seen, at least on military issues, in the 9 years I've served in the United States Senate." End quote. So, Mike Lee, it was awful. But you've got to know, I mean, he is a senator, and I get that he's part of the beast and all of that, but he's supposed to be a little more freedom-oriented, he's like Rand Paul light, and Rand Paul ain't any better, but he's like Rand Paul light, and so he's supposed to, at least talk about this kind of stuff. Come on, he's got to know this is the way that they always do. Cynthia McKinney has talked about on multiple occasions that so many times these briefings are all bull. This is what you're going to say. And, that's the way government works. So he was surprised. "I find it insulting," this is a quote again, "I find it insulting and I find it demeaning to the Constitution of the United States," Lee said, adding, quote, "It's un-American, it's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. They are appearing before a coordinate branch of government responsible for their funding and for their confirmation, for any approval of any military action they might take. They had to leave after 75 minutes while they were in the process of telling us that we need to be good little boys and girls and not debate this in public. I find that to be absolutely insane." How? It blows my mind. How many times do you get kicked in the face by government and still, well, I can't believe it. They did it again. They didn't want us to talk about this. Oh, come on. They want you to put the lockstep, do what you're told. It's the same thing they do with everything, whether you're talking the budget. It's all bought and paid for. The military contractors have paid for you. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all these people. This is what we're going to do because we got some bombs we want you to buy, and so you got to do that. None of this should be surprising to anybody, especially people like Mike Lee and Rand Paul. They should know this. I don't understand how Rand was raised in Ron Paul's household and doesn't get this. I don't know how it happened. Come on. Ron Paul's been talking about the same stuff. Might as well, I'm a little bit different personality, but saying the same stuff that Ron Paul's been saying for years. And this is his kid. I'm just curious how much it took to pay Rand off. So speaking of Rand, he said, quote, "Today, Senator Lee and I are stepping up and saying we're not abdicating our duty." Really? Really? They're not abdicating their duty. Bull. Their duty is not to the Constitution. I know that's what you're supposed to say, but that's not it. If, and this is a huge if they are supposed to be representing the people, their duty is to the people. Their duty is to tell the people, no matter what. Screw, I took an oath. Your oath needs to be to the people, to truth. If you're really a libertarian, Rand Paul, you would step up and you would say, okay, I'm done with this. This is the Republican Party. I'm done with the Republican Party. The least you could do is to tell them to piss off and go join the Libertarians. Because they have proven over and over and over again that, I'm sorry, I like Ron Paul. I worked my butt off for Ron Paul in 2012. I did what I could. My wife was with him in 2008. Many of my friends were. I was a little late to the game in that way, but many of them did it, and they weren't. Anyway, I'm sidetracking, but the bottom line is, Rand, the plan that your dad implemented, we're gonna influence the Republican Party, and they're gonna change. Well, they didn't change. The same stuff. Oh, sure, Trump talked a little bit in our game, had to get elected. And then he changed everything. And we'll get into some of that. So Rand and Mike Lee came out and pretended for a minute that they actually had any goddamn principles, which they don't, but they had to pretend. So, what did happen? Well, the House did pass a war powers resolution that will die and be forgotten, but it will give Democrats the illusion of being anti-war. In a CBS piece by Grace Seegers, she said the House of Representatives delivered a sharp rebuke to President Trump over his use of military power in the Middle East, approving a measure relating to the War Powers Resolution of 1983 to restrict his authority to strike Iran without congressional approval. There was this thing that they passed called the Constitution, said that Article 1, Section 8 said Congress gets to do that. 1983. Oh, how cute. Isn't that nice? No, this is all bull. This should have never been done. More proof that Constitution ain't working anymore, guys. It might. One of the things that I like to talk to my wife about is that it's not good messaging to say the Constitution is a failure. I'm sorry, but the Constitution is a failure. You can say whatever you want to say. And yes, back in the 1700s, that was certainly a step forward. We had 2 steps forward with the Articles of Confederation. They absolutely weakened the power of government and took so much power away from psychopaths that for that time it was amazing. And I get they reined that back and got the Constitution, and the Constitution was a step. Instead of 2 steps forward, they took 1 step forward. So they took 2 steps forward and took 1 step back, but it still progressed. So I get that. We have 200 years. Time to move on, people. Constitution isn't working. So anyway, 1983, to restrict the authority of the strike with Iran without congressional approval. The resolution passed by a vote of 224 to 194, and now goes to the Senate, where it has died. They didn't get a casket for it. They didn't, because it's controlled by the Republicans. This was all bull. This was all smoke and mirrors. Look, we're anti-war. Unless the Democrats, we're anti-war. And no, we're going to get some Republicans in here too who can pretend. They can pretend they don't like war, but everybody here is going to still just keep going like we are, still bombing brown people. It's going to happen. So anyway, 8 Democrats joined Republicans in opposing the resolution. That's probably because, and while 3 Republicans voted in favor, 7 of the 8 Democrats who voted with the Republicans are freshmen. And that's because they probably they're either planning on turning it over to the Republicans again when Trump wins re-election, or they're pretty safe in that district. So anyway, Democrats and some Republicans expressed outrage that the president failed to consult Congress in advance of the strike, seeing it as an overreach of executive power. Again, how is this new? Come on, Barack Obama attacked Libya without any even thought. He thought about calling the UN, but he didn't think about calling Congress. Because the people in the UN might bitch. The people in Congress, okay, do it. Which is what happened to Bush. So anyway, the current resolution, quote, directs the president to terminate the use of the United States Armed Forces to engage in hostilities in or against Iran or any part of its government or military. Okay. And again, died in the Senate. unless Congress has declared war or specifically authorized engaging in hostilities, or if, quote, such use of the armed forces is necessary and appropriate to defend against an imminent armed attack upon the United States. Don't you love these words? These words are great. They use them all the time. If it's necessary. Well, who decides if it's necessary or not? Well, probably Trump. I felt that it was necessary and appropriate. Yeah, it's like, shut up. More just smoke and mirrors. Like we get a choice. The government, the state does not care what you think. So anyway, but I skip ahead. Quote, we must use this tool of congressional tool of congressional power. Really? Or by our silence, acquiesce to the growth of imperial presidency. Ooh. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. He's a great guy. See, he gets to be, I'm a peace lover. In a speech on the floor ahead of the vote. The bill directs the president to end hostilities with Iran pursuant to section of the War Powers Resolution, which was originally adopted to constrain President Richard Nixon's powers in the final throes of Vietnam. The 1973 Act, sorry, it said 83 up here. Anyway, 1973 Act states that any forces engaged in hostilities outside the U.S. shall be removed by the President if Congress so directs by concurrent resolution. So, what are they going to do? One of my favorite things that I ever said, and this works in reverse. This is kind of where I'm going with this. But one of my favorite things in the libertarian discussion that's going on right now for president is Arvin Vohra was talking to Adam Kokesh, and he was talking about his plan, how he's going to disrupt things as the president. Now he'll never see that because he's not going to get the nomination. Arvin isn't going to get it. More than likely, he's not got enough support. But I liked this. He was talking to Adam, and he said, well, and Adam was like, well, the president only has so much power, and he was like, absolutely. Arvin said, what I can do is, like, I would be the commander in chief, and they said, send him over. I was like, bring him back. Just bring him back. So the president can do that in the opposite way too. Congress is like, bring him back. He's like, keep him there. So all government shenanigans. So anyway, I like Arvin. He's a good dude. But yeah, you can't slip the ring of power on. It just doesn't work. So anyway, a concurrent resolution does not require Mr. Trump's signature to take effect, but legal questions about Congress's authority to direct the executive branch via concurrent resolutions remains unsolved. In 1983, the Supreme Court struck down a similar provision dealing with the so-called legislative veto. In other words, it's not going to matter anyway. They're going to do what they're going to want to do. At the end of the day, the president's just a tool anyway. They're trying to map out that this is the president's plan. This is not the president's plan. The president doesn't rule anything. He's just a face. There's a reason that they hired an actor. Donald Trump is just a face. He's just a persona to put up in front of the American people so we can be on his team. And that's all there is. But some legal experts contend that the provisions of the War Powers Resolution would survive legal scrutiny despite the court's rulings, citing several differences between the laws. Because that ever works. One of the Dems that voted against it said, quote, President Trump was just voted against, this thing. So this is a warmongering Democrat. Anyway, just listen for that. For this one, because this one's one of the really bad Democrats. Democrats are supposed to be anti-war. Most of them voted against this. This guy's like, oh, hell no. I want to kill people. Let's just shoot them all. So anyway, he said, quote, President Trump was justified in killing a terrorist who was responsible for the murder of hundreds of American service members and was in the process of planning to kill more, said Congressman Max Rose in a statement. Max Rose. Remember that. Congressman Max Rose. If you're in his district, so libertarians are at least some choice. So anyway, so this warmonger is basically saying that, and we'll get to this too, that he's responsible for the killing of hundreds of American service members. It's you Democrats that might listen to this. You need to pay attention. This is because I'm gonna get to who came up with this bull crap that he's killing hundreds of American service members. Keep in mind, it ain't like they said, come on over here, come on into Iraq and hang out. We want to remember that we were an invading force, so all that. Anyway, he went on. Unfortunately, today's War Powers Resolution is a non-binding resolution that simply restates existing law and sends the message that war is imminent. I refuse to play politics with questions of war and peace, and therefore will not support this resolution. If he said he's not playing politics and he's a politician, duh. Of course you're playing politics. That's what you do. That's what your job is. That's what you do all the time. Morons. What's sad is people believe this. So let's go on. So that's the end of that. So they passed a resolution that nobody's gonna know about. Well, people know about it, but they're not gonna actually follow it. It's not gonna go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere in the Senate. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna matter. But a bunch of Democrats can say we voted against the war. It's just giving political cover. Here you go, guys. Let me help you out. Maybe you might get reelected. And that's Trump saying it to the Democrats, because that's they don't want all the Republicans over there. They want to pretend like they do, but they don't. They want him fighting back and forth. The divide and conquer is a really good tool. So anyway, but amidst all of this bullcrap is Iran did shoot down in the aftermath of the assassination. They shot down a Ukrainian airliner directly after it. And lots of information has come out since then about it. So the story is the Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752, a Boeing 737 en route from Tehran Imam Khomeini International Airport to Kyiv Borispil International Airport stopped transmitting data Tuesday just minutes after takeoff, and not long after, Iran launched missiles at military bases housing the U.S. and allied forces in neighboring Iraq. The aircraft is believed to have been struck by a Russian-built Tor M1 surface-to-air missile system, known to NATO as a Gauntlet. The three officials told Newsweek. One of the things I found interesting, and I'll have to go back and find this and put it in my show notes to have it below, because I wasn't going to mention it because Derek Rose had said this might be a false flag, and then which I'm going to get to, Iran wound up admitting, yeah, we shot it down. But what's interesting is the story, and that came out of Newsweek. The story that this comes from, the Newsweek article, the guy who wrote it, it's an interesting coverage, because you see, he was a former CIA agent, and I found that to be it's pretty interesting how, the guy writing the story that is designed to take us to war is used to work directly for the CIA. Maybe not the CIA. I don't remember if it was CIA in particular, but he was a spy, and I find that interesting. So, on top of that Newsweek article, and so yes, they shot it down, and they admitted to that. But after that, there were protests in Iran, and in news media, everybody's, ooh, let's go check out the protest. And look, I even saw an article, I don't remember where it was, but somebody said I know it was a tweet, I think, by Trump, where he said, see, that they're walking around our flag because they threw flags out there for them to step on, and they said no. No, we're on your side, America. So, which is all bull. But anyway, so there was these protests, and the media, of course, went out there. And oh, look, they're on our side. No, they're not. They might be mad about this or that, but they're going to be put down. They're totalitarian regime. All of this BS aside, I don't like any government, and there isn't any real difference between one government or another. It's just what can they get away with. So anyway, but I found it interesting. Luke from We Are Change talked about it a little bit, and I'll put the link down below. But one of the things I found interesting that he pointed out was that, they're quick to get out there and cover all that. But where are they talking about the yellow vests in France? Where's the news media? Doesn't serve their purpose to cover the yellow vests. Where were they when Hong Kong was attacking? Or when Hong Kong was attacking protesters? You got a little bit of coverage, not much. They don't cover protests to a large degree unless they have an agenda that they're trying to pump out, and it serves their purposes. So I found that interesting. So something else attached to that was also interesting. There was an article by a guy named Ryan Faley in the Daily Mail, and he in it says that ISIS is celebrating renewed conflicts with Iran. And this is from the article. ISIS has claimed the death of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was an act of divine intervention. Quote, divine intervention. And that it will benefit their jihadist cause. In the weekly ISIS newspaper, they have a newspaper. I didn't know. ISIS has a newspaper. I bet you they have better coverage than the New York Times does. I bet you. Or the Post. I bet there's 10 times better. Fair and balanced. So anyway, in the ISIS newspaper, Al-Naba, I bet you it's Naba, the extremists said that while their enemies were fighting each other, draining energy and resources, the jihadists would be able to regroup, according to the BBC. So this originally started in the BBC. But come on, if ISIS is like, yay, good job, then there's a problem. Not that we didn't fully fund ISIS, not that they weren't created and armed by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, at this point, who denies that? And that's one of the things I find funny is eventually it'll all come out. Somebody will be like, oh yeah, we released this, the Afghanistan papers and all that. But so anyway, but ISIS is like, yay, because what a lot of people who are out there praising Trump for this don't realize is that this Iranian guy, this general, was actually fighting with American soldiers, not like with American, but fighting on the same side. Now, sure, they didn't get together and hang out all the time, hey buddy, that didn't happen. But they were fighting the same enemy. They're trying, because Iran's like, oh shit, these people are coming. And ISIS is a different kind. They're Sunni, and Iran are Shiites, and so they have different sides of conflicts going on forever. And so anyway, ISIS is happy because we're not fighting them anymore. And even if we do go back to fighting them, I say we, again, in the United States, and I'll get to that in a minute too, the United States starts attacking them again, they won't be doing it with Iran's help. And Iran's going to back out of doing that. So ISIS was happy. So I think this next piece of this story, and this is still just the first topic, I'm going to get to a few other things, but one of the things that I personally found most interesting about this is this. And I was talking about that eventually somebody's going to come out. Well, that's already happened. That has already happened in this instance. Pompeo, Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, already admitted to lying about evidence. Daniel McAdams wrote a piece, which is excellent, again, down in the bottom, for the Ron Paul Institute. And what he said is that Trump's neoconservative Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is a man unafraid to admit to being a liar. In fact, he seems to revel in his ability to lie to the American people. Many of these people do this. They just love that they can 2 weeks later be like, oh, yeah, that was bull. But meanwhile, bombs have already been dropped. So anyway, he said, speaking on the Laura Ingraham program, Mike Pompeo admitted that the neocon idea of imminent and the normal idea of imminent are two very different things. They're not the same at all. Imminent means sometime. Imminent means it might happen. So now most of us know that imminent means it's about to happen. Like 10 minutes from now, we're going to be dealing with this. No. For a neocon, imminent means sometime in my lifetime, maybe my kids, my grandkids. So anyway, he said, quote, we don't know precisely when and we don't know precisely where the attacks might take place, but it was real, he told Ingram. No, he was saying, we have specific intelligence. Except for they didn't. And like I said last week, that was all bull. What's weird for a voluntarist, one of the things that we wind up doing all the time is hoping. Man, I hope I'm wrong. Please let me be wrong about this crap. Because statists, it would be great if they weren't evil, wicked people. But unfortunately, they are. And so anyway, so that's what I found the most interesting is that, here he has just already lied. So, but anyway, Mike Adams, Daniel McAdams went on to say, but if you don't know when and don't know where and presumably don't know how, on what basis did Pompeo and Trump administration sell the idea that he had to be killed immediately lest untold numbers of Americans be killed? Because it's bullcrap. And what's funny is all of that is known. None of this is new. So, and to skip just a little bit ahead, as I said, because this has also come out, this is from NBC. As I said, from the beginning, this was planned. It has come out, according to NBC News, that the operation to kill Soleimani has been in the works for 7 months. 7 months. So it's not imminent. It's not like, imminent is apparently 7 months. And they started doing it a long time ago. That's some bull. Bull seems to be my word, But anyway, this is not 18D chess. This is just a warmongering monster, just like the rest of them. So, to go on to even more lies, I have teased a little bit. The 600 deaths that are now, and this is all covered by James Corbett, again, the link will be down below, the 600 deaths being blamed on Soleimani, which was part of what they lied about to get to assassinate the second most powerful man in Iran. What the 600, they said 600 deaths, 600 deaths, 600 deaths, kept saying it. And so it's an old lie. Initially, it wasn't even this guy. They used 600, but it was an old lie from Dick Cheney. That's how far back this lie goes. Dick Cheney is justifying it. It's imminent. It's an imminent attack from back when Bush was still in office. We have skipped all the way over Obama with imminent. So anyway, but it was a lie that Cheney said in the Bush years to justify attacking Iran in general. So now it's just this dude's fault. It's just this general who had 600 people's lives. This is just typical government war propaganda. So that basically covers what's happened in this past week, more or less, when it relates to the war and with Iran. Now, you're going to be told that the tensions have decreased and all of that. No, they haven't. They're just like I said last week. They're waiting for other reasons to escalate. One thing, or they're not moving all these people over there for no reason. I covered that last week. Go back to last week's news broadcast to get the details. But I covered that. They absolutely aren't going to move all these people over there and then not use them. They're just not going to. It's kind of like, and I like to make the analogy to risk. If you get all your armies together, put them in one country, you don't just sit them there. If you're playing a game of risk and you've got most of Australia and you got a friend that's over here in Australia, he's got like Indonesia or something, and you put 20 armies there and he's got like 3. You're not just sitting them there. You're going to use them. And then to these people, this is nothing more than a game of risk. So they're going to use them. And every bit of this is nothing more than war propaganda. And we need to just stop putting up with it, because it does make a difference. We do now have the ability to just say no. Be Nancy Reagan for a minute and just say no. This time about something that's real. Say no to war. Say no to killing people. And it's weird that we're supposed to be a Christian nation, that I have to tell people, say no to killing people. Say no to killing people. It's wrong to do it. It's one thing if somebody's breaking into your house, shoot them with a gun. Absolutely. That's absolutely justified, of course. But if they're not doing anything, it's hard for me to believe that going over to somebody else's house and shooting them is not self-defense. Even if they're assholes, even if the guy that you went into his house and shot him, even if he is an asshole, it's still not self-defense. I don't care if he's got 20 guns. I don't care if he's got a nuke in his backyard, which, by the way, my position is I want a nuke in my backyard. So, but it's still not justified to go kill him. No matter how you twist it, no matter what you come up with, when you go out and kill somebody, that's not self-defense. It's just not. So the second story I want to cover is it was covered by Zero Hedge, and it's a new Cambridge Analytica leak that reveals psychological manipulation of the global population. And you might think, well, how is all this connected? Well, because this is all part of it. They're continuing going back to Woodrow Wilson and propaganda and Edward Bernays. They know how to program people, and they've gotten it down to a science. And if you believe these people that are talking about Cambridge Analytica and what they did within the elections to elect Trump, they're doing that globally. And they're programming things into the populace's mind. And one of those things is likely pro-war things, because that's where this started. The first thing that Wilson wanted to do is turn people because the American people were largely, this is pre-World War I mean, Wilson ran on an anti-war platform. So this has been going on for some time. But anyway, one of the first things he used propaganda for was to turn the American people from being anti-war to pro-war so they could get us into World War I. And they've become really good at that. So anyway, the article says, on New Year's Day 2020, Twitter account Hindsight Files, began posting documents from data from Cambridge Analytica, which exposes the extensive infrastructure used to manipulate voters on a global scale. On a global scale. This isn't just happening here, because governments get together. they want us to think that there's, the American government versus the Russian government or versus the Chinese government or whatever. You know, one of the things that's come out after all of the craziness with World War II is that the bankers were funding both sides. You can go find that information just about anywhere now. And that's what they do. They fund both sides. So anyway, more than 100,000 documents are said to be released in the coming months, revealing Cambridge Analytica's activity in a shocking 68 countries, including elections in Malaysia, Kenya, and Brazil. The Guardian reported that the documents come from Brittany Kaiser, a former employee of Cambridge Analytica who turned whistleblower and star for the documentary The Great Hack. Kaiser told The Guardian, quote, "I'm very fearful about what is going to happen in the U.S. election later this year. And I think one of the few ways of protecting ourselves is to get as much information out there as possible." So let that sink in for a minute. She's worried, based on these things, that they're going to come after our elections. I think they already have. I think it's been proven multiple times that they have. The latest CA whistleblower has said that the dumps will contain previously unreleased emails, project plans, case studies, and negotiations. The Hindsight Files Twitter account has posted data on the relationship between Cambridge Analytica and John Bolton. There you go. That's all you need to know. The connection. For those of you who are not up on it, John Bolton is neocon numero uno. He is the guy. There has never been a war he didn't love. He used to work for Donald Trump. So Cambridge Analytica and John Bolton, former national security advisor to the Trump administration. In 2013, John Bolton's super PAC paid Cambridge Analytica $650,000 for voter data analysis and digital video ad targeting. So that's piece number one. Okay? They are absolutely programming people with whatever their agenda is. And their agenda is very simple. It is, in this country, it's talking about our government, talking about the government in the United States. They want you to make them comfortable. You're their tax base. You are being used to make sure that they can fly around on private jets and play games and do all the crazy stuff that the elites want to do. That's what they're doing it for, is so that you can be their nice little slave. You are their house slave. That's what you are. You are their house slave. Your job is to make them comfortable, to serve them dinner, to do all those kinds of things. So that's one side of it. The other side comes via censorship. They have been censoring the crap out of, you name the alternative media. And recently, my friend Elijah Gizzarelli, who is I'm the press secretary for Adam Kokesh. He is Elijah is his campaign manager. And Elijah did an interesting interview with a woman who has a popular podcast, and she gets thousands of views. Well, one of the things that happened was, as soon as she got data, she sent it to Elijah. She was shadow banned. Could not be any other reason. You could see it in the graph, before and after. Everything is good, just that one. And what's different? Adam Kokesh's name is in it. So he's shadow banned on YouTube, because largely that's where her podcast is broadcast. So obvious, right there. You can see it in my own page. If you go to Aquarian Anarchy on Facebook, I'm practically non-existent. I covered this all in a previous Aquarian Anarchy before we started the series. So go watch that. I'm going to have the links and all of that. So what they're doing by eliminating all of these alternative media companies is they're eliminating competition. So also, there was recently again, James Corbett put out a discussion with the Freedom's Phoenix, Ernie Hancock, where he talks about, you know, conditioning people to just like give up and just go along. You know, he describes a experiment where they put a dog in a container, and there's a little wall in the container, and the dog, on this side, the floor, they can electrocute it. It's got some, you know, treats and whatnot over here. And they initially show that the dog can jump the little wall and go over here when they turn the electricity on. So, you know, it's uncomfortable over. It doesn't kill him, doesn't hurt him real bad or anything, but it's uncomfortable, so he can jump over. Well, what they do is they make it impossible for him to jump over. And they keep shocking him. And they keep shocking him, and eventually he gives up. Eventually, they can remove that barrier, and he still just sits there. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to accept that this is just the way it is. So you're getting the programming of what they want you to think is what it is. In this particular case, it's war. They want you to just be like, okay, we have to do this because these people are bad, and we're the good guys, and that's the programming. And then they take the other voices away. They make it to where you can't do that. And not only can you not do that, you don't try. You don't even try to find the correct voices. I mean, I fight this myself because, you know, how many times have each of us just thrown our hands on, I can't do anything about it. But you can do something about it, and they know it. And it's getting harder and harder for them to do it. Now you can tell is they have to do the sorts of things they have to do now, like shadow banning, like kicking people off of all of these different platforms, like trying to monetarily attack them. It's why I do not have any kind of monetary connection to this program, is because that's not how they're going to take me out. I have a job. I have actually several jobs that I do. I work for Adam. I work for other people that are doing libertarian causes, and I have a day job. Yes, I'm a busy person, but I won't be putting any emphasis money-wise on doing this. Now, I'll spend some money, but I'm not trying to gain money from it. And the reason isn't because I don't want money. Believe me, if you're on BitChute, which I haven't gotten this on BitChute yet, but if you're on BitChute, tip me. Order stuff from my store. I use every penny I can get because I'm trying to get more equipment. But I'm not counting on that at all. It's not my livelihood. It's not where because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. Because things are so hard for people to do, and I don't have a name yet. So there's that. It's getting kind of long, so I'm going to leave out one of the sections. But going a little bit farther, I wanted to cover the libertarian race, because one of the things that the regular media is doing is they're covering the heck out of the Democrats and Republicans. And yes, I will cover the Democrats, and I will cover Trump and any news that comes along. Nothing really big going on right now. But I'm also going to cover the libertarian race. And there's a couple of developments that happened in the Libertarian Party. And to be clear, if you're watching this and you don't want to vote, okay, don't vote. I don't care. But if you do, lp.org, go become a delegate and vote your hearts crazy. I don't care who you're voting for. But there are a couple of developments within the race. And I've said before that many of these people that are running for the Libertarian nomination are fantastic. I do not like all of them. I don't like Max Abramson. Let's just be clear. Go look him up. You can figure out pretty quickly why I don't like him, because he doesn't want any anarchists in the party. And I don't particularly like Lincoln Chafee because he's not a libertarian. And, you know, don't reflect that on Adam. Adam and him get along just great. I'm never going to vote for him. And that's the bottom line. I don't care. And that's where it's at. But just about everybody else is pretty cool. Unfortunately, one of those people has withdrawn from the race, and that is Kim Ruff and John Phillips, who Kim was running for the presidency, and John Phillips was running for the vice presidency, and they have stopped their their run. This past weekend in Tennessee, they announced that they were no longer seeking the Libertarian nomination for President of the United States. What I have to say about that is I don't know Kim personally, but I've seen enough. I don't agree with everything that she talks about, but she was a principled libertarian, and she will be missed. And she brought a lot of respect and a lot of good libertarian thought to the race, and I bid her well, and I hope she has a wonderful future within libertarian politics. Hopefully, she runs for something a little more local. She's from Arizona, so hopefully she does something there. But she had some personal things in her own life, and so did John Phillips. They covered it in their when they stopped running, but they will be missed, and I thank you for trying to make a difference, because that's what's going to take. Is it's going to take people standing up and trying to make a difference. The second thing I'm going to talk about is my friend Vermin Supreme, who I also am quite fond of. And if Adam Kokesh does not get the nomination and Vermin Supreme does, I will not be that sad. I like Vermin Supreme, and I think that he would make a excellent. And there's going to be libertarians that are going to get mad at me because of that. I don't care. You can be mad at me. I'm telling you the way I feel. And Vermin is an anarchist, and sure, he and I aren't going to agree on everything, and I do understand he's making fun of all of this stuff, but there's some real content to some of those bites, to some of those jokes. But anyway, Vermin Supreme won the non-binding New Hampshire primary this past weekend. Congratulations, Vermin. Good job. And I want a pony too, just to make it clear. I need my pony. And I appreciate all the people that came out in New Hampshire and went vote for him. And thank you very much. I want to say, again, if you are active in the Libertarian Party, get out, become a delegate, vote for your candidate. Unless you're Lincoln Chafee's people, stay home. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is a difficulty that I had last week. I had a little bit of it tonight, but not as bad, because I'm trying very hard to not do it. And I also noticed that my friend Adam Kokesh ran into the same problem this week when he was talking on Adam versus the Man. And what it is this difficulty with we. And as I was talking about all of this programming and all of that stuff, I think that that's something that is programmed into us over and over and over again, is to say we when we're talking about the government, or identify with your government. How many times do you hear, we attack them? Really? You got out in your car, did you, and drove across the ocean to Iraq, and you were fighting against the Iranians in your car, in your Chevy? We didn't do shit. A bunch of people that you hired government to put into uniform and fly over there did it. You didn't do shit. And we aren't fighting for any kind of freedom or anything like that. We didn't do any of that. We are victimized. We are enslaved. We are stolen from. We are, hopefully not, but in the past have been conscripted and enslaved and sent off to war. So we are not the government. And that is a difficulty that I have, and I apologize for it. And I wanted to bring that up as a basic understanding of where I'm coming from. That we are not the government. I am not in any way associated with what these psychopaths are doing, because they are psychopaths. These are people who do not have emotion. These are sociopaths. I didn't really know the difference. I watched the same program, James Corbett and Ernie Hancock, Declare Your Independence. They talked about these kinds of things, and what the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is. I didn't really know. So it turns out that a psychopath is somebody who's pretty much born without any emotional connection, not really caring about anything, those kinds of things. A sociopath is somebody who learns that. And part of what they're programming us to do is not care. I try to mix in some lighthearted jokes and fun. But the one thing I really hope that you get from me within this program is love. I'm not saying I love you. I don't know you. A few people that might be watching this. Hi, Donnie. that I do care about and that I do have quite a bit of love for. But in general, I love humanity, and it is emotions that are going to carry us and carry the day, because people know that it's wrong to kill and people know that it's wrong to steal. So we just need to carry that into our cooperative relationships, because many times people like to think that voluntarists or anarchists don't care about the community. I do very much care about my community, and I just don't believe in forcing them to do things. I believe that we can exist cooperatively, because it's not cooperation when there's a point of a gun. It's cooperation when you and your neighbor get together and share things in time of hardship. So that's the kind of love that I hope to see more of. That's the kind of love that I am going to preach about. That's the kind of love that I hope carries through my broadcasts. So I wanted to leave in the idea of we with a quote by Rothbard. You're going to see a lot of quotes by Rothbard. And the quote is, quote, "We must therefore emphasize that we are not the government. The government is not us. The government does not, in any accurate sense, represent the majority of the people." I don't know that that has ever been more true than it is now. You can just see it in the marijuana debate. You know, I think the statistic is 76% of the American people think that marijuana should be legalized federally. 76. If they represented us, marijuana would be legal. It's not. You might be like, I'm in Colorado. That's why localization is a much better way forward. But ultimately, government does not represent you, and government is not a community. Government is nothing more than force. So we are not the government, and I will continue to strive to not say we when I am talking about the government. If you've liked this, please like it, share it, comment. Love to have a discussion. I appreciate you looking at our store. Go buy something. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. Probably where I'm most active at this point. MeWe, Minds, and on Float. I'm also on Steemit. But you can find me just about anywhere. Thank you very much. Stay free.